Hello and welcome to week 7 in environmental science. This week we'll be studying content from chapter 7 in our textbook, which is about soils and agriculture. This tab of the content page includes some learning objectives. This one has some terms to know. I recommend that you make flashcards for the terms that you don't know on this list and study those flashcards. The remaining tabs look at first introduction to soil science. So here are some resources to help you get to know the soil horizons and also soil formation. Here's some resources, including a study table. Remember, these are often the subject of essay questions on our exams. So this one is a way that you could compare and contrast different forms of agriculture. There's some other resources here about the green revolution. I will tell you that students often confuse the green evolution with like organic farming, when really this was about taking some of the high yield varieties that were developed back in the 1940s and through the 70s and getting that technology available to the developing world. So it doesn't sound like what you think it is. Compare that with some of the new tools we have with the gene revolution, and by that I mean growing genetically modified crops. Finally, the last tab has some resources to help you understand the content on pages 156 and 157 about growing animals. This week's discussion is going to be about genetically modified foods and how you feel about it. So here's some things to think about as you read this article. When you get down to writing your post, this is what you should be focused on. Your initial post is due Wednesday at the end of the day, with responses to your peers being due by Saturday at the end of the day. This week's lab has a few parts. The first part is about soil texture. You are going to get your hands dirty. So this protocol is going to require you to have a couple of tablespoons of soil from a natural area and a ruler and a little bit of water. You're going to follow this diagram, and it's going to help you classify the soil by what it does and what it feels like as you follow the protocol. So starting right here, you're going to place approximately 25 grams of soil, or a couple of tablespoons, in your palm. You're going to add water drop-wise. You're going to kind of knead the soil to break down the aggregates, and you want it to be a moldable putty. Then you're going to answer this question: does it remain in a ball when you squeeze it? And if yes, you're going to move on to this. If no, the soil might be too dry, or the soil might be too wet, or the soil might be sand. So if the soil is too dry, yes, you're going to go back to this, maybe add a little more water, and then ask this question about the ball again. If the soil is too wet, you're going to add some dry soil to soak it up, knead it, and then ask this question about whether it forms a ball again. If you keep getting no, no, no here, this is the classification for your soil. It's not forming a ball because it is sand. If you could form a ball, then you're going to follow this procedure, and you're going to see if you can rub the soil between your forefinger and your point. Use your thumb and kind of rub the soil over your forefinger and try to create a ribbon. So basically you're trying to create like a little stick of soil. And here you're going to ask the question, did it form a ribbon? Sometimes it's just going to collapse and not form a ribbon at all, in which case your soil is going to be classified as loamy sand. If you can form a ribbon, you're going to go down here. Does the soil make a weak ribbon, less than 2.5 centimeters? You'll answer yes or no, and you'll continue asking these questions until you got to one of these circles that tells you the texture of your soil. Here's some questions about soil texture for you to answer. This is an activity about agriculture and climate change. Here's a podcast I want you to listen to. Here's an activity where we're going to look at cold hardiness zone changes. So these are the minimum temperature in these places on the map, and you can read the map using this key. And this is from 1990 and this is from 2012. So you're going to be asked how this has changed over time and how that might impact agriculture. And the questions are down here. So you're going to answer these questions, and then finally you are going to get to know a agroecology case study. So right here, the FAO's Agroecology Practices webpage has some really cool case studies. You're going to choose one and you're going to answer these questions about it. You're going to turn everything in, specifically a photo of the soil sample that you did the texture on, taken during your texture test, the answer to the questions about soil texture, the answer to the questions about cold hardiness zones and climate change, and then the answer to the questions about the agroecology case study. That's due Saturday by the end of the day. This is an ungraded practice quiz to help you get ready for the week 7 10-point quiz. The only other thing in the week 7 module is your second lab report. Your second lab report is going to be about the plant community lab that you did during week 5. So this is when you went out and you sampled, I think it was 6 plots. And this was a community lab, so you weren't just looking at one species, you were counting the individuals of all of the plant species that were rooted in your plot. So you already have a figure for this. Everybody created a rank abundance curve for this community. Check the feedback that you got in the week 5 lab. Some of you did not log transform your y-axis. Some of you had some other issues, but check that out before you turn in your lab report. You may have some feedback about that graph. So you're going to write a lab report about the plant community data set that you collected. Remember, a lab report needs a title and it needs an abstract that describes the purpose, the methods, the results. Make sure you're giving us quantitative language that describes the results. We want to know what the biodiversity and the species richness and which species had the highest relative abundance. So really quantify your results and then end with a conclusion about the plant community that you sampled. Then you're going to have in your rank abundance, your rank abundance curves and a figure description that describes the figure, the rank abundance curve. Okay. So the other thing I want to mention, that's all that's in the week 7 module, but I did want to mention, there's one more thing. There's an exam 1 readiness check. This is worth 5 points, and really what it is an opportunity for you to start thinking about your first exam in environmental science. So I'm going to ask you to look at the exam 1 information page. Look over it. It's got some information about honor lock. It's got some tips about how to prepare, and then it has all the learning objectives for all the material that's going to be covered on our first exam. So I'm asking you to just kind of reflect on exam 1 and what's on the exam 1 information page. I want to know which 5 topics you feel the most comfortable with, which 5 topics you think you need to study the most. I want to hear how you're going to prepare for the exam. I want to hear in general how much time you've been spending on this class. And I want to know that you are prepared to use HonorLock. There was an HonorLock practice quiz in the week 6 module. So you don't want to be surprised and find out that your technology is not compatible with HonorLock when you go and sit down to take this exam, like a couple hours before it's due, because you're not going to be able to do it. So this is something that you've had access to now for a week, and you need to make sure you get that practice quiz done. Here it is in the week 6 module, so you know you're ready to take the exam. This is the week 8 module. It's pretty simple. It's just that exam information page that I showed you. It's a content questions discussion. If there's something that you have questions about, whether it's the format of the exam or content that's on it, post them up here and I can respond and your peers can respond to get you some help. And then finally the exams here. That's not going to be open until week 8, but you will have access to this module so you can see the other components. Okay. Have a great week, and please let me know if you need anything.